Hello, everyone, and welcome to the second episode of Klasstime with Karuna. And today we have our guest, Juan, who is a GitHub education program manager. And I would hand it over to Juan to introduce a bit more about himself.
Hey, Karuna, thank you so much for having me on the show. As you mentioned, my name is Juan Pablo Flores. I'm known on the tech streets as Juan P. Flores or Juanpa. And yeah, I'm a senior program manager here at the GitHub education team, where a lot of my work is helping support students to build communities on their campus and making sure that you folks have everything that you might need before you graduate so that you can have a very um, nice time here in tech and welcoming folks from all walks of life, from people who have a tech background, people who are moving to tech, and just like self-learners as well. So definitely trying to help everyone to get a successful career here in tech through GitHub. And yeah, that's a very simple introduction of myself.
Juan helps a lot of people in community and students and community building. So definitely look out for this stream and please make sure to drop your questions in the chat. So let's get started. So my first question is about your journey in joining GitHub education. Like, how did it all start, or when did you get interested in stuff?
Yeah, so that's a very long question because I've been doing community and events for, oh my God, like a little over 6 years now. I joined kind of like the whole community ecosystem by mistake. I was always someone that really enjoyed supporting events and being in the backstage and being a staff. So a lot of the time that uh, a lot of the things that I worked before starting to join GitHub was just being at events and seeing how I could help. These happen in multiple ways. One of them being that I in one way I support like a big conference here in Mexico, and I was just like, hey, I want to be like staff or something and do something cool and meet like really cool people. And they did invite me to do like the most like the job that no one wanted to make, which was like hosting at the hotels of the conference. So I was just like someone who was welcoming you at the hotel and be like, hey, welcome to Mexico City, right? And um, probably something that it was not as cool as other parts who were that were more involved in the event. But I truly love that I was able to connect with a ton of people through that kind of like through that help that I was providing in the event. I rapidly grow in that event from being at hotels to basically managing like ceremonies and being more proactive in the event. And that happened like in a spare of like 3 to 4 days. So I rapidly grew in that event, and I just completely became obsessed about like events and the community and meeting great people. From there, I had my first hackathon, and then my first hackathon, I have to say, was a life-changing opportunity for me. Like, I really got into like the vibes of doing fun stuff for a weekend, learning how to use new algorithms and stuff, and of course, just like learning new technologies while you were making really cool projects. And uh, after some time, I got invited to be part of the GitHub Campus Expert program. So I was there as a student, and even like before that, I think that a lot of the work that I did. So I started like a league of Mexican hackathons, like MLH, but in Mexico. We were absolutely zero creative with the name because it was the Mexican League of Hackathons, also known as MLH, but like Mexico. So we just took like the same approach, and we trying to support a few events here in the country. And with time, it just became like a really cool big thing that we were traveling every weekend to support other hackathon organizers, and we were helping the students in places in the country where they would never have like these type of events to have like their first hackathon. And I think for me it was just like one of the best times of my life. It was very exhausting because I was doing this while I was studying. So, as many folks probably here in chat might feel close to, studying and working it's quite hard sometimes. Like especially if you're traveling a lot. So even though like it was very tiring and it was like a lot of work that we were doing, I had a ton of fun just going to all of these hackathons. And I think from there I met a few folks from the GitHub education team, and after a few months, I decided that I wanted to finish college, and I got invited to join the GitHub Campus Expert program in the first batch. Like they saw the work that I was doing in the country, and they were just like, "Oh, do you want to be part of like these beta tests?" I think at that time, it didn't have kind of like the structure that the program has today. So it was a lot of like, you are going to be testing if this thing works, and there was no, there was no there was almost like nothing. We started to build like the whole program from scratch while we were kind of like going through it. And after a few years, I kept being like not like super active part of the community, but definitely I was there when I was needed, and um, I was helping like other students in my like I was born and raised in Mexico City, so for me helping other folks from Latam was kind of like the approach that I wanted to take, because it's like the audience that I have close to me. And I think probably some folks might feel related to, like, there weren't a lot of programs in Latam for developers at that time. So being part of like this first batch for me was like a big deal. Like I think I was extremely honored to be part of the program in the first batch, and being able to help the program to grow. I was looking forward to bring more people from Latam, because there's some great talent that no one knew about. And I guess like by doing that, I got like once again like seen by the community and by the GitHub education team. And um, after I did apply to GitHub like 100 times, and I always got rejected. And basically, it was because like GitHub was not hiring in the country. So if you're, I think it was one of like the hardest things. Like, there's a company that you love and that you really like, and then you apply and you get rejected just because you're not in a country where they hire. And yeah, I think that at the end it was all about me keeping to do like that work. I work really close with the community in Latam, and I think the most important thing that I could tell from that whole experience before getting to GitHub was that it is really important that you have people that really advocate for you. And a lot of that happens when you're supporting other community members, right? Like the work that you folks are doing with Community Classroom um, is kind of like in the same way, right? Like, you're helping other folks to learn the things that they need. So at the end, like, these folks, most of the time, these folks will like pay back, even just like sending you a DM being like, "Hey, this was an amazing show. I really enjoyed it." To even being like, "Hey, like, Come Classroom is a life-changing experience for everyone," and they would advocate for the community. So definitely like being able to be in that position, and that also helps you to have like people advocating for you. And I would say that was like 90% of the reasons why I am where I am today, just like because people were like, "Hey, he's doing like an amazing job here, and he definitely like deserves like a chance to see if they can, if he or she can prove like the value that they can do with this specific role." And I got an email one day being like, "Hey, are you interested?" And I was just like, I don't know, I think when you get like an opportunity like that, is a little bit overwhelming. But definitely I've been learning a lot here at GitHub. So for me, it was more like learning how to, from organizing hackathons and events and just like being a member of the community, to building communities, and then being in a job that now I can support.
That's a great journey you have done. So, since hackathons are in the talk, I would like to ask what tips would you give for the beginners to turn these hackathons into valuable opportunities for themselves?
Ooh, I love the topic. There's a lot though, and especially I think we're seeing for the first time a lot of folks are going to in-person hackathons, which is very different to live hackathons, like online hackathons. So my recommendation to make sure that you make the most out of a hackathon is, first of all, if you don't know anyone at the hackathon, it's a great chance for you to kind of like learn and get to know new people. In my case, my first hackathon, I didn't have a team, and I made my team on the line to get into like inside the hackathon. So the first thing is just like come with a very open mind. So, and what I mean by that is just like don't think that anyone is there to like more think that everyone is there to help you out, right? And everyone there is kind of like in a very positive note. So if you're going to your first in-person hackathon, like talk to people. Most people would enjoy having a conversation. um, this applies to everyone from other people attending the hackathon to even mentors and judges. And when you have mentors, mentors are great not only to kind of help you sort out any questions that you have, but they can actually become like mentors after the hackathon. Like if you manage to kind of like build that relation during the hackathon, they will always like stay around, and of course you'll see them in other hackathons, but definitely they can help you out in things beyond just like coding. The second thing is that you should never go to a hackathon for the prize. And unfortunately, this is very much incentivized by the whole competition ecosystem in hackathons. So when you think of going to a hackathon, a lot of that is just like, oh, the first, second, and third place will get like these like, amazing prizes that you can get back home, right? But I would say like the real winners from my experience at hackathons are those who meet new people and that they keep communicating with them. And what I mean by that is just like I have seen startups being born of hackathons, even though they lost the hackathon, they keep kind of like talking to each other and they just start building more stuff together. And these folks that started building like these fun projects on the side with people that they met at hackathon, they're now like big companies, like really, really big companies. And they all started just like meeting someone at a hackathon and just starting to build things together. So I would say the biggest prize, or let's say the biggest benefit that you can get at a hackathon are two. As you mentioned, like one is learning, and the other one is just like meeting awesome people that, in many cases, people that would rather prefer to have like a weekend on a very cool tech and geeky event of coding than probably going out in a party. Not saying that any of this is bad, but if you're into hackathons a lot, this is extremely like the people that you want to kind of like be around. And the third one is talking about like prices and stuff. Every time that you go to a hackathon is a great opportunity for you to make a project that you wanted to build, but probably you didn't have the time, or you probably didn't give yourself like the freedom of doing so, right? I think there's a lot of pressure in building these great hacks that are very technically complex. And the hacks that normally win are the most simple ones. So I call them like elegant solutions to a very complex problem. So imagine like I would say like the projects that have like I was very amazed about is just like in Mexico, it's very common that people will arrive late to, let's say, like meeting someone, and they just made like a PayPal system connected to GPS, so that the last one to get to a spot that you agree with your friends will pay like food for everyone, or will kind of like invite like entries or appetizers for everyone. And if you see the hack is very simple. The use case is very kind of like straightforward, and it doesn't have a lot of complexity. So definitely it was one of those projects that really amazed me, and it wasn't like very hard, like, oh, let's do with like thousands of computers, and then like let's do big data and all of that. Because I would say like if you focus a lot on the technical side, it's good if you do it for yourself, but when you're kind of like selling the pitch, most of it will be kind of like making sure that people understand why this project is important. And in terms of like learning, there's always something to learn at a hackathon. Try some new technology that you haven't had the time to try, doing things differently from other hackathons. Or I don't know, if you're into backend, probably like spend like a couple of hours trying to do like some front end or some other kind of like piece of like the stack that you're not familiar with. And that will help you kind of like to understand how like each piece of this project kind of like has its own complexities, but at the same time learn how to do the thing, at least in a very short amount of time and a very compressed amount of time.
Great tips by Juan. And if you haven't done a hackathon yet, it's your time to get started. And I totally agree with the point of how to keep connected with your friends of hackathons. Like if you have a team, please be in connected with each other, and opportunities will come your way. So my next question is, what kind of programs do GitHub currently offer for students? Like we all know,
Oh,
the most loud one is the GitHub Campus Experts, but we do want to know more. What does GitHub offer?
yeah. There's a ton of new a ton of new programs that are coming out. So the first one, if you go to education.github.com, we recently launched a thing called Global Campus. And what we found with the pandemic was that we needed to find a way to bring the entire community together. This means like bringing teachers, bringing students, and bringing like schools together in this virtual space so that everyone get to, build things together, highlight some of the work that some students are doing, and making sure that the community feels like there's some sort of way of belonging in tech. And this is something that probably we don't see a lot um, in like big tech cities. Like if you are in a city that is known for the technology that they have, probably you have like a community close. But for those folks that might not have, but also there's like folks outside of like those cities that are looking for a place to share and just like build things together. And so we started Global Campus as a way to, and Global Campus is pretty much right now an MVP of kind of like this idea of building in a campus, like your school campus on the internet. Right now, we have like a ton of live streams that are happening every week. There's a big community of students that join these live streams to share a little bit more about what they can do. But definitely something that we're looking forward in the future is kind of like making new ways in which you can take advantage out of like GitHub. I've been surprised in this whole research, like the amount of students that are open source maintainers or that are actively contributing to open source is so big. Like I never imagined it being that big of thing. And just like we want to make sure that we're there. Either like if you're building like a project and you want to shout out, you get a shout out for that project, that we have space for that. We're launching a thing in the next few weeks that will allow you to share like some your open source repository, so that if you're looking for contributors, you can share them there. We share that on our Twitter account, where you can sign up to get like mentorship to get that repository in a good state, and so that um, other people can start making contributions to that open source project. And so Global Campus is this very small MVP that we have done, but definitely we'll be getting there in the next few years, where we want to make sure that this is a space where if you're a student, you just want to hang out and find other cool people doing cool projects that probably like, even like yourself, you're doing something cool. So Global Campus is one of them. Campus Experts is the most known one, and probably is the one that has been around the most. So Campus Experts is a program that, we even for me, like building community on my campus was a very lonely journey, where I was starting to do all of this work on myself and trying to make sure that I knew the thing that I was doing. So, but Campus Expert basically help you out to get like some skills that you might need to build communities and make sure that these communities are impactful. What I mean by that is making sure that you know how to do some public speaking, how to give workshops or plan a workshop, but also how to think community beyond organizing events, and rather like how can you make sure that this community will provide events and opportunities for your community members that are going to be impactful in the future and in the present as well. So definitely when we think about Campus Experts, is like a great way if you are getting started or you already have a community, to build or grow that community and make sure that people in that space are not only being active but actually being very intentional about the events that you're organizing to solve some of those struggles that your community might be facing, and how just like these events will help you reach that goal of where would you like to have your community being at. So that is the second one. We also released a couple of years ago, a new program called the externship, GitHub externship, which basically gives. So an externship basically is just like it's very similar to an apprenticeship or an internship, but this is handled entirely with like GitHub in the middle. So we help you connect with companies that are looking for interns, and you just need to submit a code sample depending on what these companies are looking for. and companies and open source projects so that you can start working with them. So what we did is basically we just are like the middle point between everything. This is a program that Arco from India is actually like leading, and this has built like huge opportunity for folks, both for companies to reduce the stress of like having to organize a whole internship program, and for students to find great internship opportunities. So basically there's like a code challenge or just like a project that you need to build. You submit that as a pull request, and companies will go through it and will choose kind of like the best candidates to the problems that they want to they want to solve. So in that sense, it's kind of like a little better than the normal internship application process, because here it's not so much that you do like code interviews in the normal way, like, oh, solve, like reverse this binary tree or something like that, but rather it's just like, what's the company trying to solve, and what's the intern or the extern going to be working on. In that way, then when you go through the application process, you might not be the best at data structures and algorithms, but you might be good at React, or you can be good in backend. So in that way, we make the application process fit more kind of like the role that you're going to get into, rather than the like very stereotypical data structures and algorithms application process. And that has provided a ton of benefits for both students who are really like into some sort of technology, and for the companies that are temporarily hiring these externs to even like transition them into full-time employees afterwards. And those are some of the few. We have a few others, like the Stream Team, which is our content like creator program, and we have a ton of other like programs like the GitHub. Probably you've heard about it, the GitHub Student Developer Pack, which basically gives you free access to hundreds of services and resources for you to learn, code, build, do anything that you would like to do as a student. You will have it for free. So there's like partners that we have worked with that cover all sorts of things. So if you're learning how to code, there's some great free courses there that you can take. If you want to build like a website or start your own startup, you have absolutely everything that you will need. And the only thing that you need to do is submit a proof of you being a student, and you're ready to go with all of these services. So definitely, if you are a student who, probably you didn't have a credit card, because, it's not fairly common that they would give a credit card to a student, or, it's sometimes really hard to get one. You won't need any of that to get access to all of these resources. And we have like some really cool like companies within well, some really cool partners, like, I don't know, Azure. We have Azure credits. We have a ton of like different like services that I totally love, like Twilio and other like these other of these like big brands that you can start using for free for your projects. And if you're going to a hackathon, that's even better, because now you can also learn how to use like these services without having to pay anything, and start to use them in a practical way.
Now, since we talked about the programs which GitHub offers, there are few programs where you can get rejected if you apply to. So, what are your tips and how to cope with the rejection and apply for the next cohort?
Well, I think there's a lot. And so in terms of tips, the biggest recommendation that I can give you is like really speak for the community. Don't speak for kind of like only yourself. And what I mean by that is like when we see a lot of applications, what we see in a lot of applications is just like being like, oh, I want to get to this program because I want to do XYZ, especially for like campus expert, right? And rather than being like thinking of yourself, think about like what's the impact of having a campus expert in that campus, in your college, or in that community, so that we can get like a really good overview of how we can benefit you, right? Like, we want to make sure that not only it's not so much about like you being the right fit for the program, but it's actually all the way around, how the program is going to be helping you, right? And sometimes we feel that we are not the right program for a lot of the students, and definitely there's like other programs that might be like a good idea, like a good to take a look into. But I would say that's the biggest recommendation. Just make sure that you have a general understanding of your community, how having a campus expert in that specific school or campus will help out to take the community to the next level. And I would say, like, my last piece of advice is just like, there's if you get like a rejection, don't feel bad about it. We get tens of thousands of applicants every year, and sometimes it's really hard to pick like who's going to go to the next phase or who's going to become kind of like a trainee. So instead of just like thinking of like, oh, this was like a rejection, I'm not good enough, that I know, like I was part of those, like I was a student as well, and I know how awful you can feel when you get a rejection. But rather, two things. One of them is, um, there's so many different variables that go into an application process. So many times it's not you, it's much more kind of like, there's such a big like amount of applicants that we were not able to find like a slot for everyone. And the second thing is that, there are so many different ways to build communities, and being part of the campus expert program is just one of them. So if you really want to build a community for your campus, you can start doing it even if you're not a campus expert. And something that we really like reading when we're going through the applications is comparing like how someone has grown from one cohort from another one, and be like, hey, from someone that on the first application process they were thinking of building an application, building a community, and then in the next like cohort they're like, oh, I have already started and it's going pretty well. That gives us like a great like signal that things are going very well in that community, and that is someone that is applying to the program for the right reasons, and that we are going to be able, like, we want to keep like around those folks. But yeah, I think rejections, don't take them as something negative. There's a time to learn from them, and uh, it is not the only way to build communities. Like, there's definitely like so many different ways to do so. And yeah, that I would say those are my recommendations for rejections.
Amazing tips by Juan again. And if you ever get rejected, please do remember these things and do apply them so that you could make progress again and apply again for the next one. Even if you don't get selected, you do not stop your work. And so we have Mona here today as a special guest, and we have asked our audience some questions before the stream was announced. So I'd like to go ahead and ask some of these questions on behalf of Mona and our audience. So the first
Sure.
question is by Utkarsh Maurya. How can, as a student, enroll my college into GitHub Campus program?
Oh, sorry, I kind of like cut in there. Can you repeat the question?
Oh yeah. How can I, as a student, enroll my college into the GitHub Campus program?
Oh, okay. Great question. So the GitHub Campus program is not specifically for students, but it's for campuses, right? And what the only thing that you need to do is to have some school admin or someone from your school, let's say like CS board or anyone related to technology, jumping into. So if you go to the GitHub Education website, you'll see that there's like schools there in the top like menu, and the recommendation for getting your school is just like get someone from a teacher to a director, or someone in your school to apply for it, and then just like fill that form. The form is pretty straightforward, so you just need to fill like a ton of information about the school, and within the next few weeks someone from our team will review it, and if everything goes well you get approval and you will get like a GitHub enterprise server for your school, which is absolutely amazing. You have all the benefits, like literally you're using like the tools that the big companies like Apple and just like big companies are using for developing their software. You're gonna have that for your school, which is great. And it also provides some extra benefits, like a little bit more services. So definitely, like, The application process is just like go to education.github.com // schools, um, and tell your school admin to help you fill that form so that you can get all the access to these additional benefits.
So the next question is, please give GitHub program information for dropout students, like who are not able to pursue college, can also become a part of GitHub programs.
Hmm. That's a great question. Right now, we are not able to support folks who are not in schools. So, like, there's a ton of different ways in which you can get support of GitHub as a whole. So, for example, just like going through some um, some of the repositories that folks have been opening. If you want to learn how to code and stuff like that, there's a few repositories on GitHub that you can use. But currently, we're looking forward to have like some sort of validation, and this is kind of like we want to make sure that we get the right people into the student developer pack, because we're offering like a ton of like great benefits. But if you think about it, it's really hard to we need to validate that folks are students so that we avoid any let's say, I don't know, external organization to try to get all of the benefits, right? So for the time being, the most of the only requirement is just like being at a school. But definitely we're looking forward, and we're actively working within like the education team to provide more benefits for folks who are self-learners or people who are studying from home or homeschooled, so they can get all of these benefits. If you're in that case, you can always reach out through our support forum. So if you go um, to GitHub and you go to GitHub support, you can open a ticket there. Just let us know a little bit more about you and kind of like what you're learning and how you are. If you are homeschool, let us know how that's going, and the team will review and they can jump in and make some exceptions for the benefits of the program.
Another question is like, does GitHub offer any programs for graduate students or students who are working? No, those won't be students, but people who are working.
Yeah. So for students that are working, all of our programs are completely available for you. So you have absolutely nothing to worry about. If you're a graduate student, like if you have, it depends, right? If you have graduated and you have started working, I would recommend reaching out to the GitHub DevRel team, because they're the ones who can give you much more support on all of the things that you're working on. So if you're starting your own open source project, to even if you kind of like have your own company and stuff, definitely they are the right folks to reach out to. But in terms of like all things students, like the GitHub education team is the right way to go. As long as you can like have that student verification, you definitely like you definitely should reach out to our team. But those are kind of like the small difference that you can see around. If you're a graduate student, for example, if you're in your master's or your PhD, definitely like you will also have access to all of the benefits from GitHub education.
Awesome. So let's take some questions from the live audience right here. Mm, Okay, so first question we have got is, I have joined multiple hackathons in the past. What would you say is the most optimal way to network through online hackathons?
Oh, sorry, can you open that? I think I cut off for a second there.
I have joined multiple hackathons in the past. What would you say is the most optimal way to
Hmm.
network through online hackathons?
Yeah, I think that through what is the most optimal way to do networking through online hackathons? First of all, I think it's just like attending, like being present in an online space is the best way. So just being, I think a lot of like folks use Discord for their hackathons. So making sure that you're there, you're just like either like helping others or being very public of what's the current status of your project, like if you're finding any struggles or if you are performing pretty good, like if you're doing well with your hackathon, like hey, you can share that with the rest of the community. If you're stuck, also share that. um, I would say being active on the mini events of the hackathon is a great way to start doing that network. So making sure that you are attending these mini events that hackathon organizers have been organizing is a great way also to start building that network. And I think it's all about like presence. So making sure that you're there, and that you're kind of like reading what other people are doing. If they're doing well, just like celebrate with them. If they are running into problems or getting stuck, help them out if you can, or redirect them with people that might help them out um, to solve some of those questions. And I think at the end, if there was like someone that really helped you out or that you really enjoyed being around, so send them like a DM and be like, hey, I had like a great time. It was great meeting you. We'll love to keep in touch after the hackathon and see if we can join again in the future, or just like to be in the loop in case like there's some opportunities that come in the future. And those are kind of like the best ways to network during an online hackathon. I know it is a little bit complex because of like you don't have that person like in front of you, but those are some of the great recommendations that I can give.
Okay, so another question we have is the problem is that my tier 3 college teachers aren't very active about these programs. I would love to initiate the process myself. Is there any way to do that?
um oh my god, this is so common, and even I struggle with that. um the biggest recommendation I can give is that there's always like one teacher. And this is normally kind of like all colleges. There can be like sometimes you can feel like teachers are not very active on these kind of like programs, but there's always at least like one that really wants to get more involved. So we call them like champions, or I call them like teacher champions, which is like someone that you can reach out, and if you want to organize an event, they would advocate for you to get the space and everything that you need. So my recommendation is, um, if you're a student and you want to get kind of like the schools program and all of these other benefits, especially for teachers, find that champion teacher and start from there. Otherwise, it's just about like talking to, and it's a little bit weird, but sometimes you need to really talk to your school admins on like what's the benefit for the school, right? And how this will make their lives a little bit easier. So and especially like if you think about most of the student programs that we have, they're more into like what's the student, not so much like what the teachers are. So those are kind of like two tips. One of them, find your champion, and second of them, tell them like how this will benefit you as a student and the school as kind of like as a whole institution, so that they can you can start kind of like negotiating in some sort of way, which is weird as a student to start negotiating with your school, but to get these benefits, or to have like someone dedicating some time to it. At the end, like GitHub, I think is just like a industry standard. So you can start from there, just being like, hey, this is offered for free to us, and this is what like a lot of companies are using, and I would love to kind of like get access to it, but we need like some admin to help us out. And then you can take it from there. I have like a special model for kind of like advocating for change. So first one is kind of like mentioning what's the thing that probably is a pain, then where would you like to take it, what's the process, and then what's the cost. So if I would be like, when I wanted to introduce like a GitHub program on my school when I was a student, it would be like, hey, like students are always looking for ways in which they can use like industry standard tools, and there's so many that is happening. um, but imagine if we could get like this thing that is completely for free, and we can start helping students to learn those skills. I know this will take some time out of your week or from your agenda, but I definitely think that will provide a ton of value to everyone that is learning how to use this tool. And with that, you can start kind of like leveraging the conversation. So definitely, there's a lot of like change that needs to happen, but I think it's completely viable once you find like either a champion or a school admin that is really invested in making sure that your folks have like the latest tech that you can use and that you can learn from it.
Also, that things are now online. What do you think about this? You don't have to initiate it from school, but you can do it yourself because everything is online.
Yeah, so we have a few different events that we are organizing. So right now, if you're in India, probably you've heard about Field Day. I think the application went out a few days ago. Well, the application selection process went out this weekend. So that's like the first like type of event that we have open for absolutely every student. And basically, GitHub Field Days are these great unconferences, which means people on an unconference is basically the opposite of a conference where instead of you going because there's like a panel or a set number of talks and topics that you're going to be talking about, when you get to the event, you and the rest of the community will come together to define the topics that are most important to you so that you can discuss them with the rest of the community. So what we're looking for with Git Field Day is just to, extend, as you mentioned, like we want to extend uh, the benefits of like the program to students that are right now like probably not part of the program, but definitely that are building communities. And so what we do is field days are a great way to bring community leaders together and have them discuss about the work they're doing, kind of like what are some of the struggles that they have been going through, and some tips and tricks that they have they have learned from their experience in the living community. So and it is also a great way to network with other community leaders that probably you were not aware of. So a lot of these communities are doing great work, but they don't get highlighted, or they are not very public. But there's a ton of people that is doing a great job. Probably not. It's not so visible. So it also provides a ton of visibility to folks that are doing some great job. Uh, so Field Day India, I think we have two, one in Bangalore and one in Delhi. So definitely would recommend kind of like watching what comes out of that event. I know the application process closed, and the selection process just went out. But it's one of my favorite events because I have met amazing people as a student during those events and just shared some really great knowledge about how to raise sponsorship and how to manage a team and all of those like things that probably are not so technical, but are rather like some of the questions that as a community leader you might have. The other events that we have, for example, is GitHub graduation that is happening in a couple of weeks. So if you're graduating this year, we always, with the pandemic, I think we as a student you were not pretty much able to celebrate graduating. So we're organizing GitHub graduation in a couple of weeks where you're able to attend to an online graduation ceremony. But this year we have the first in-person graduations happening. So we have one in India and one in Brazil happening. And basically what we do is that uh, we have some exclusive swag for all of those going to in-person hackathons, to in-person graduations. But also, if you're graduating this year, you'll get access to some swag from the GitHub education team. So there's like multiple events that you can be part of, even if you're not part of like the GitHub Campus Expert program.
Next question is, I am right now in my final year of college. So at that time, should I take part on Campus Expert program or not?
Hmm. That's a great question. So the campus Expert program requires you to have at least 1 year before graduating. So depending on how much time you have before you graduate, I would recommend whether it is the right program for you or not. And this is kind of like more on the sense of we notice that for you to really make an impact in your college, you would need more than a year to kind of like make your community assessment, your community plan. So my general thought is probably if you're your final year, see when you're graduating, and if you're graduating more than a year, then probably we will be able to have you in the program and make sure that you have everything that you need to support your community.
Mm. So Abhishek Kumar asks us that what are your thoughts on GitHub Field Day, what things happen there, and what other event GitHub organizes.
Yeah. So I mean, we talked a little bit about it already with what field day are. The cool thing is that we also bring like a ton of campus experts and sometimes even like GitHub staff to these events. So there's like a ton of like knowledge that will be shared there in terms of like how to build or grow communities on your campus. My thoughts is that it's my favorite event. I really think that it's one of those events that is really filling a gap that we found on kind of like the whole community ecosystem, just bringing you to a place where you can have those conversations with other community leaders. And I would say if you have some time and you were selected, definitely like attend. um, the other events that we organize, so for example, if you're in India, Constellation happened I think like a couple of weeks ago, which is an event that we organize to very much like focus on the India region. So we talk with open source maintainers and with people from like big companies about how they are supporting open source and how they are developing their code internally. And even we had like some education panels. So we had like a few campus experts talking at Constellation, talking about their experiences, and some of them have been building some great projects. Like I don't know if you heard about like Harshil, but Harshil made like the GitHub wrap last year, and it was one of those projects that was very small and became like a huge thing on Twitter. So definitely, there's a lot of like cool things that happens in Constellation. We have like GitHub Universe that normally happens in October, where we give like updates about the company. And I don't think we're gonna have this the next like event in this year, but GitHub Satellite as well is kind of like an ongoing event that we organize. Now, if you're a student and you just want to kind of like jump in and learn with other people, I would recommend going to our Twitch account. There we have like events and we also have streams. I would say like almost every day of the week. So take some time to go there and you can learn a ton of like really cool stuff from our campus experts.
Also, they ask, are you coming to India to attend GitHub Field Day?
I don't know. I I am not certain right now. Probably we don't know. It's something that is still in discussions, but I would love to go to field day. Um, Probably not to the first one, but maybe to the second one.
And I think since we have very less questions and this might be the last, when and how to apply for GitHub extensions?
Okay, so externship right now is on hold. Normally, we open one on summer and one on winter. I don't know exactly when it's going to be reopened, but definitely keep an eye on the GitHub education newsletter and to our social channels, because there we post all of the updates there as well in the GitHub India account. So that would be the recommendation right now. The program is being over a it's on a remake right now, so making sure that we can grow and make sure that everyone is kind of like getting the benefits right now. So right now it's on hold, but definitely keep an eye on our social so that you can apply for it.
Awesome. Thank you for answering everything, Juan. And hope you all liked this stream. And And if you haven't checked out Community Classroom, please do join the Discord. Link will be in the description and it's here too in the live stream. And do check out all the GitHub programs, try to apply, and it's very useful for growing your career. So I definitely recommend you to apply to each one of those. Try to utilize the student developer packs, which are free for everyone. And thank you, Juan, again for taking your time to come to the stream and answering all of the questions.
Thank you for inviting.